Okay, so we're going to talk about market equilibrium and market disequilibrium. We know markets aren't static, they're in flux, they're always moving from equilibrium to disequilibrium and back. This is the nature of markets, they're dynamic. And to go from equilibrium to or disequilibrium to equilibrium depends on the pairs. If supply is very elastic, obviously it will take less time to go towards equilibrium, to get to equilibrium. Whereas if it's inelastic, then it's more difficult for suppliers to change, and so the movement from disequilibrium to equilibrium is slower. Now let's have a look at this movement from disequilibrium to equilibrium. We've got two types of situations. You've got an excess supply or an excess demand. This can also be called a surplus market, where the supplier has produced a surplus of products at price 1, and this is how many products he's produced, but we can see at that price the demand is much less, and so the supplier will find they can't sell the products or many of the products, and will have to reduce the price, and so will reduce the quantity because they won't be prepared, willing and able to produce that same quantity at a lower price. This will tempt the consumer, and demand will increase because of the lower price. So we have this pincer movement towards equilibrium in this situation. In an excess demand, this is a deficit market, where we've got a particularly low price, and so the demand is high. We find at that low price the supply is low, and the supplier will find that they can't sell, they're not able or they sell all their products, but they're not able to satisfy all their customers. They haven't got enough products, so they will think, I'll put the price up and increase the quantity. So putting the price up will reduce the consumers, will reduce demand, the quantity demanded, and we will find again a pincer movement towards the equilibrium, towards the higher price and an increased quantity. Okay, so that's how it works. That's how markets move from disequilibrium towards equilibrium. You've got different causes of shifts in demand. We've talked about these before. Why does the curve of demand move to the right or to the left? And we've got the different reasons. So I'm going to just go through these again a little bit. So you've got the income. So if people's incomes change, obviously they'll buy more or less products according to how much money they've got to spend. Maybe there's more taxes, people buy less products, maybe there's more income generally, people got more money and demand will go up. Then you've got price and availability of substitutes or complements. Substitutes, we mean products which are an alternative. For example, rice is an alternative for pasta. So if pasta goes up in price, people will turn to rice, and the demand will shift for rice. Complements are products used together. For example, petrol and cars. If we buy more cars, we will obviously use more petrol. So maybe the price of cars comes down, and so people will use more petrol. The demand for petrol will go up. Then you've got fashion, taste, and attitudes. And obviously, if these change, demand will shift. Alternatively, the supply can shift, so it can go up or down. And these are the causes. So you've got costs of supplying the product. Maybe you have different factors of production change in their costs. Maybe robots become cheaper, and this will shift supply to an increased position. Or maybe labour becomes more expensive, and so that will make the curve of supply shift to the left. So the costs of supplying products is important here. Changes in prices of other products. If I produce shoes and boots go up in price, obviously I'm going to want to produce boots instead and less shoes. So this will change the supply. This will have an impact on the supply. The size and nature of the industry. Okay, so if the industry is very optimistic, if people are very optimistic, they will shift, that will shift the curve to the right, the supply curve, an increase in supply. If they're very pessimistic, maybe they'll close factories and reduce their workforce, etc., and reduce. So the supply will shift for that reason. But there can be other reasons. Maybe they achieve some sort of economies of scale or monopoly position. These types of things can affect a shift, can create a shift in supply. Government policy, governments can make policies like tax or subsidies or maybe regulations even, which will change supply for different products. You know, if they subsidise cars, there'll be a shift in supply, there'll be an increase in supply. Maybe they make regulations on no more petrol cars, so that will shift supply dramatically for petrol cars, etc. So government policy. Now, there are relationships between markets, and these are important to understand. You've got alternative demand. We talked a little bit about this. This is talking about substitutes. So I talked about the rice and pasta analogy, where you can buy rice instead of pasta. And to understand that, we can look at these graphs. You know, if for example, there's a decrease. What do we got here? We've got a decrease in supply of pasta. The pasta will go up in price, and that increase in price will probably increase the demand for rice, which will cause an increase in price for rice. So there's this relationship in alternative demands and markets of alternative demand. We've got joint demand, that's the complements I was talking about, products which complement each other, which one needs the other. We talked about cars, so if there's an increase in supply of cars and the price will go down, that will increase the demand for petrol. Okay, so there's a relationship there. Joint supply is when we use a product for in two different ways. For example, soya beans. They can be for human or animal consumption. Obviously, the good quality soya beans would be used for human consumption, and the lower quality, the very low quality, for animal consumption. So here we can see an increase in demand for human consumption in animal soybean will actually increase supply in animal consumption for soybeans. So we'll see a lowering of price. So we've got here we've got an increase in demand, which will increase the price in soybeans, but then the increase in supply of soybeans would also mean a lowering of price for animal, which would be a kind of byproduct, if you like. Rationing. This means to reduce the supply of a product to maintain an exclusivity, and so keep products high in price. Think of Gucci or Ferrari. You know, they reduce supply, they ration these products in order to maintain the price and keep exclusivity. So, derived demand, the famous derived demand market is the labour market. And this derives its demand, the labour market derives its demand from the demand from products and services. When we see an increase in demand for products and services, we will see an increase in demand for workers, which will increase the wages. So that's a derived demand. Okay.